Tesla stock finished up on Friday at the closing bell, almost around 4%. In the after hours, it kind of fell a little bit, but you never know what happens. Currently sitting at $213.80 per share. Can Tesla defy the typical September and October woes to reclaim what it's lost year to date?
Another blow to America's electric car dreams. J.D. Power now slashing its forecast for electric cars by about 25%, taking down their estimates to just 9% of the market from 12% of the market. One reason more people are choosing hybrids or even sticking with or going back to gas.
I know. It's going to be a sticky, tough sledding when it comes to transitioning internal combustion engines, but this must happen, people. These forecasts from 12% to 9%, whether or not we get to 50% by 2030, all of that is irrelevant. The future of transportation is going to be electric and autonomous. We're looking at a seismic shift on how humans are going to be getting around within the next decade or so. Cheaper costs per mile to get around is only going to result in higher utilization of these methods of transport. The adoption rate of EVs won't be gradual, it's going to be on an exponential growth curve, and the major catalyst is going to be autonomy.
Mark, this is a topic you and I have talked a lot about, and I get dunked on because, by the way, I bought an EV and I'm buying another one next week. I want to throw that out there because I can do that and have other cars. I drove back from Wisconsin on Tuesday, 14 hours. And I kept my eyes open. Counted 12 EVs the entire trip, 10 Teslas, 2 were charging, a Hummer EV and 1 Mustang Mach-E. Probably missed a few. But it's when you get out of the East Coast or California bubble, it is jarring. Because in California, Teslas are everywhere. In New Jersey, Teslas everywhere. A lot of Rivians now, too. When you go to the Midwest, they don't exist.
Yet. They don't exist yet. Back in 2019, I didn't see a single Tesla here in Southeast Texas. Not a single one. Then I bought a Model 3 in 2020 or so. I'd see another Tesla every blue moon or so. Fast forward to 2024. I'd see one every 20 cars or so. Now think about this. In Southeast Texas, from 2019 to 2024, we're talking 5 years. From barren, no Teslas, let alone EVs, to 2024, where I see them all the time now. My point being, it won't take long for individuals to figure out that there might be something up with EVs. More importantly, there might be something up with these Teslas.
Early adoption is, I won't say it's easy, but it's a lot easier than mass adoption now. And you're starting to see that. You're starting to see consumers say, listen, you need to solve a number of things to happen for these EV sales to take off. And first, there has to be more lower price models in the marketplace for consumers to afford.
There are lower price models, but they're not named Tesla. But don't worry, Elon and the gang, they're going to be working on that lower cost price model.
Secondly, as we talked about, the charging infrastructure has to be built out. It's in the process of that. But it not only has to be built out, Brian, it has to be in locations that consumers can see, just like gas stations. These things can't be, a couple chargers behind the target.
No.
You're telling me you're in an EV that isn't smart enough to navigate to the closest charger? All I gotta do is tell my car to go get it. And it's going to the charger, no matter where it's located. Be it behind a Buc-ee's, in a parking garage, or at a Tesla service center. I don't need a huge advertisement telling me where I need to fill up. Common misconception from individuals that don't understand that these are computers on wheels, capable of doing much, much more than an internal combustion engine vehicle ever could.
Mark, I drove through the rest areas, the plazas, service plazas. I drove through, I had to stop at a few of them to get gas and do other things in Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Okay, in Indiana, I saw 1 Tesla charging. I took a picture and posted it. In Ohio, at Blue Heron, 1 Tesla charging. That was it. Everything else empty. And as far as I could tell, the majority of the Pennsylvania service plazas, the ones that if you're on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, you're not stuck to, but it's pretty doggone close, Mark, didn't have any charging at all. All we hear about is the billions going to the charging network. Where are they?
Yeah, and again, they have to be in very clear areas that consumers can see, because at the end of the day, this is also a bit of a PR game as well, which is you have to drive awareness, not only of EVs, you have to drive awareness of where you're going to be able to charge them. But then the third thing I was about to mention, Brian, which nobody really talks about right now, if you look at the forecasters, I mean, even J.D. Power with their new forecast for this year, they still think by the time we get to 2030, about a third, one out of every 3 cars will be an EV.
Now, I'm aware it's going to take a lot for the United States to convert from internal combustion engine to EVs. I've mentioned that earlier. But with that knowledge, I would say every new car purchased, 3 out of 4 will be EVs. Now, I know that may seem kind of high to some of you, but honestly, I think I'm being really conservative.
But what people aren't talking about is the inconvenience factor of the charging time. And until that gets solved, and it will, in my view, with solid state battery technology that's coming down the pike, but that's not going to be till probably, middle of next decade when they're available in volumes.
I don't worry about charging time. I imagine if I didn't have a gas station in the garage, it would be more of a concern, but when I'm charging in my computer, the locations of the charging are to where I can get out of the vehicle and go do other things. If I don't want to do that, I can always watch Netflix or anything else on the monitor in the middle. There are games built into the car. Hell, I can activate Steam from my vehicle. The point I'm trying to make is I've had EVs for 4 years now. I've never just been sitting at a supercharger waiting for the car to finish. There's always something I could be doing. And that's never been the case when I was pumping gas. I would always have to pump the gas. A disgusting, smelly chore that I'll never ever go back to. Instead, I will plug in the cable, much like my phone, and then go do something else while it's charging. These 3 issues submitted by Mark Fields are irrelevant. EVs are naturally coming down in price because the battery, which is the most expensive thing in the vehicle, is coming down naturally like anything that's being mass produced over time. As for chargers and charging wait time, these are fears of individuals that have never charged an electric vehicle before, mainly a Tesla. It's tough for me to speak on the horror stories for a GM customer or a Ford customer, but not having to worry about charging problems? That's one more reason why you should be in a Tesla.
Solid state batteries, we're going to be able to charge a car in 5 to 10 minutes. That's a gas station time. By the way, on my drive back from Wisconsin, my longest stop, I just re-looked it up because I track everything because I'm a weirdo, Leslie, was 16 minutes. That's my longest stop, all in, filling up, doing other things, getting something to eat. Solid state batteries, Mark, can do that. So does the U.S., by the way, give a shout out to your former company, Ford. If I was in a Ford F-150 hybrid, I could have done the 950-mile drive from Wisconsin to New Jersey and stopped 1 time for fuel. You can do 800 miles on a tank of gas in a hybrid pickup truck, assuming you're not driving like a ding-dong, right? What does Detroit have to do? Wait it out to solid state? I'll call that the Toyota strategy?
Well, I think they have to do, and you mentioned Ford, for example. I think their strategy is spot on, and they've pivoted their strategy. Their strategy is, listen, we're going to offer a lot more hybrids, a lot more plug-in hybrids. We're going to make it easy for the consumer to not only be able to experience an EV, at least a portion of the vehicle, but take away that range anxiety. So, I think what the automakers need to do is, expand their hybrid offerings, but at the same time, they have to have a full court press on how do they deliver a low-priced EV in which they're going to be able to make money. And listen, in the meantime, Brian, you've seen some of the figures for the automakers. You saw Ford the other day. They're going to take about a $400 million charge and maybe another $1.5 billion for impairments and asset write-downs on their EVs. That's the tip of the iceberg. Wait till you see not only the other automakers come out with that, but the next shoe to drop is going to be the supply base. So, it's really around developing products that people really want and value, offer a good hybrid lineup, and then work like heck to bring in those low-cost EVs, initially maybe with the current battery technology, but then they really have to work on solid-state battery technology to take away that inconvenience factor from the consumer, which nobody is talking about in terms of charging time.
Solid-state batteries, the holy grail of EVs. There is no magic bullet that is going to fix your costs. Range anxiety, that's something that was a problem maybe a decade ago. If you have range anxiety, you're not in a Tesla, or you've never owned an EV, which is perfectly fine. You'll get there eventually. But when you do, might I recommend getting yourself in a Tesla? Me personally, I find myself scouring the inventory of Tesla. With Panda in the shop, I am contemplating buying a used Model 3 of a 2021 variety. $25,300 for a gently used 40,000 mile Tesla. Now that may seem like a lot, but trust me folks, I'm buying a Tesla with 400,000 miles on it before I buy anything else, ICE or electric. Slap on FSD for $99 a month, you've got a vehicle that can do things that no other vehicle on the planet can do. Be your own personal chauffeur, if you will. Honestly, the only reason I haven't pulled the trigger is because if it's less than $25,000, you get a $4,000 tax credit, which would make these cars with any amount of mileage deals of the century. In conclusion, the EV forecasts from many people are going to just be plain wrong, including myself. I think 3 out of 4 vehicles by 2030, purchased new, will be EVs. Now that's over 5 years from now. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm more than likely going to be wrong. But wouldn't it be surprising that if I was wrong on the downside? Regardless of what percentage of new vehicles will become EVs in the future, just know it is on an exponential growth curve being fueled by the ever-present reality that autonomy is going to be in our daily commute lives. As the cost per mile dwindles to practically nothing, the cars will be utilized even more. And when that happens, these vehicles cannot be using fossil fuels. As for the concerns regarding EV adoption, price, range anxiety, these are all over-exaggerated concerns. EVs are already at price parity with your standard comparable internal combustion engine vehicle, and only going to become cheaper as the cost of the battery declines. And as for range anxiety, I find it much easier to charge the EV than to go get gas right now. It really is a matter of perspective. Those that fear it either don't have it or have the wrong one. Do yourself a favor and make sure you're in the right battery electric vehicle for you. That's all I have for you today. Be easy. Peace.